Welcome to the BEASTwriter podcast. I am your host, Ryan Sakamoto, and today we are going to break down the Week 6 matchup between the LA Rams and the San Francisco 49ers. So let's get down and dirty. After watching game film of all 6 Rams games under the Shanahan era, I found a glimpse of what's to come, especially on the offensive side of the football. It's no secret Shanahan loves to get Kittle involved early and often, and versus the Rams, it's no different. What you'll see and what you should look for on Sunday is George Kittle will be used on one trick play. Alright, one trick play. And the majority of the times, 9 times out of 10, it will be on 8 to 12 or 8 to 15 curl hook routes or shallow crossing dig routes. That's it. That's a game plan for George Kittle. Why? Because it works. And if the past behavior is any indication of future behavior, that's what Shanahan loves to do with George Kittle against the Rams. All right, let's start off with the trick plays. I have my notes here of every George Kittle snap. Yes, every George Kittle snap. Believe that. All right, I'm just going to go over what I'm talking about in terms of the trick play. If I can pull it up here, and here we go. All right, these are some stats I just want to throw out. Okay. In 2017, George Kittle had 1 catch for 8 yards. His quarterback, Brian Hoyer. His second game in 2017 against the Rams, he had 4 catches for 100 yards, and his quarterback was Jimmy Garoppolo. All right. Mind you, this game was against backups. Doesn't make a difference. It was good production. 49ers can't help who they face, so good game by George Kittle. 2018, the next year, 5 catches for 98 yards and 1 touchdown. Now, this isn't considered a deep trick play, but it is a play where it's out of Kittle's comfort zone in terms of what the Niners like to do with him. This was an out and up route, kind of like a wheel route. Instead, they used George Kittle as the tight end, not a running back coming out of the flat. All right, so that's one play. In 2018, George Kittle stats, 9 catches for 149 yards, 1 touchdown. This is a trick play in the game where George Kittle actually played dead, as I like to call it. Basically, he throws a block, lays on the ground, waits for the defenders to go in their respective zones. Once George Kittle is left uncovered, he gets back up and, oh, look, I am open. Throw me the ball, Nick Mullins. Boom. Big play. Trick play. There you go. All right. Here's another game. 2019. Last year. George Kittle. Stat line. 8 catches for 103 yards. Trick play. Against the Rams. Here it is. George Kittle's lined up in the backfield. I formation. What do the Rams do? They have no idea. They haven't prepped for it. They let George Kittle run down the seam for an easy catch off play action. Whoa. Shanahan smart, man. The following game, in the last game versus the LA Rams, what does George Kittle do? Stat line, 5 catches, 79 yards, 1 touchdown. What's the trick play? Here's a tight end designed to leak, much like Doug Peterson likes to do with Zach Ertz with the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, so these are things to look for. Look for George Kittle to have a big fantasy studded game. I'm looking for a stat line similar to 5 catches for 90 yards and 1 touchdown. All right, so moving on, let's talk about Jimmy Garoppolo. All right, Jimmy Garoppolo has a perfect 3-0 record. I tweeted it out earlier today, but it does come with some fool's gold, and here's the fool's gold. 3 touchdowns against 5 interceptions, including multiple gains of 2 INTs. That's not going to get it done. Furthermore, he has a 79.3 passer rating against the Rams. That's not going to get it done. All right? The 3-0 record is kind of misleading as well because one of those wins was against backups back in 2017 as the Rams were prepping for the playoffs. So like I said, it's not their fault who they play who they play, so I'm not going to hold it against Jimmy Garoppolo. It's not his fault, but it's just something worth noting. All right. Now, let's look at the INTs that I'm starting to see in Jimmy Garoppolo's game, dating back to last year. Actually, it's been a problem his whole career in San Francisco, but two of those INTs last year were basically Jimmy Garoppolo's fault, 100%. He red zone coverage, the underneath defender watched Jimmy Garoppolo's eyes as Garoppolo telegraphed his passes downfield. Marcus Peters jumped the route inside the 10-yard line for the easy INT as he tried to hit George Kittle on the post route, on the corner route. The last one last year, Jalen Ramsey read Jimmy Garoppolo's eyes, undercut the route, neglected his zone, jumped the route underneath for another easy INT. These are things that Jimmy Garoppolo needs to clean up. And let me tell you, Jalen Ramsey might very well get another INT this game. Simply because Jimmy Garoppolo telegraphs his passes, he's very smart. In my opinion, he's the best cornerback in the game. I don't care what anyone says. You put Jalen Ramsey on an island, he'll get it done. When you go up against a secondary that's just so hungry for interceptions and is smart enough to jump routes and read the quarterback's eyes, it makes life easier for them because they don't have to play their splits or their zones as tight or as disciplined because they know where the ball is going. Once Jimmy Garoppolo is focused in one half of the field, you know damn well he's never going to come back to the other half of the field. So if I'm a safety, I'm looking at it like, okay, obviously you're going to look at me to see what kind of coverage we're in. But hey, man, I'm going to tell whoever my safety is over here, whether it's strong or free safety, it doesn't matter. Hey, man, let's play some games with them, man. Let's rotate coverage pre-snap, post-snap. Let's give them a different look. So when the ball is snapped, I'll rotate back, you go forward, or we both rotate back. There's a lot of things you can come up and run support, then I can come up. There's a lot of different things that you can do, and the Pittsburgh Steelers like to do this a lot. They like to disguise coverages pre and post snap. So when Jimmy Garoppolo is lined up under center, may see a cover 3 based on the single high safety, or he may see, man-to-man coverage. It's either a cover 1 or a cover 3. But what happens is, if that safety drops back to help out on the back end, now it turns into what could be a quarters coverage or a cover 2 or a cover 2 man underneath. These are things that you always have to account for and counter in a quarterback if you're the quarterback of the offense. There's so many different things, and defensive coordinators are now scheming things up to where they're making things really live and making things really difficult for the offense side of the football. All right, but getting back to Jimmy Garoppolo and these interceptions, a problem that many analysts are questioning is if he's ever going to break this habit. It's habitual. It happens week in and week out. You'll see Jimmy Garoppolo make a great throw, and then 2 plays later, just, what the heck was that? Like, what are you doing? And friends are telling me, screaming at their TVs, like, oh my gosh, he did it again. But then Jimmy Garoppolo does these nice things. Like, I'm not saying Jimmy Garoppolo is a bad quarterback. I still believe he is a top 10, 15 quarterback. I even tweeted out before the season that I believed he's a top 10 quarterback. And do I still believe that? As of right now, I'm going to say the answer is no. But I will say he has the potential to be a top 10 quarterback. I just believe it all starts up front, and the offensive line needs to take a blunt of the blame. Because no running back can have success if the offensive line is not opening holes for them. No quarterback is going to have success if he has no running game to feed off of because the play action pass is not working. And the wide receivers can't get open because they don't have enough time because the offensive line is not giving them enough time. So it all starts up front, and I'm blaming the offensive line. Let's talk about the offensive line. Facing Aaron Donald. In 11 games that Aaron Donald played against the San Francisco 49ers since entering the league in 2014, he has 11.5 sacks. 11.5 sacks. That's over 1 a game. Furthermore, in the Shanahan era, he has 9.5 sacks. That's a lot of sacks since 2017, right? That's a lot of sacks. And Aaron Donald is coming off a 4-sack performance last week. And I hate to say it, but he also got 4 sacks against the Niners too. in one of his games. So look out for that. 3.5 sacks that Aaron Donald has against the Niners have came up against players who are currently on the 49ers roster. Mike McGlinchey gave up 2. Laken Tomlinson gave up a half sack. And Daniel Brunskill gave up a full sack. So that's 3.5 sacks that the 49ers interior has given up to Aaron Donald. Now it's funny, right, that I mentioned those 3 players. Well, they like to use Aaron Donald all around the football field, all around the field. When I'm talking about all around the field, I mean playing the piano along the defensive line. You'll see him lined up as a 4 technique, a 5 technique, a 0 technique, a 1 technique, a 3 technique. He lines up everywhere. All right. It doesn't matter, left side, right side, middle. It doesn't really matter. They will put Aaron Donald in the best position to make plays, and if I'm Aaron Donald, I'm going to beat you with a bull rush and a swim move. Those are the 2 moves where Aaron Donald is getting his most success against the San Francisco 49ers and against anyone basically in the NFL. He's just too strong. And Mike McGlinchey just gets overpowered way too many times. So if I want to sack it, if I want to create pressure, and it's not up the middle, I'm just attacking right tackle Mike McGlinchey every single time. Now, everyone's giving Trent Williams a hard time, and yes, he's not having his best season, but you guys got to remember, he's coming off a year where he wasn't playing football. So with no proper offseason that he's been accustomed to over the course of his playing career, and then having to just go in and play some NFL games, it's kind of expected. Like, do I expect Trent Williams to be this bad? No. But is he awful? No. I still think he's a top 10 left tackle in this game. Now, that will all be determined on how he plays the second half of the season, obviously, but as of right now, I wouldn't say pull the plug on Trent Williams just yet. All right, so getting back to Aaron Donald and that offensive line, he's going to wreak havoc. You know, he's sitting at 7.5 sacks on the season, which leads the NFL. 2-time NFL Defensive Player of the Year. He should pick up at least 1.5 sacks on Sunday. That's my guess. All right. All right, so now that we got that out of the way, now let's talk about the Los Angeles Rams wide receivers. Now, I was watching NFL Network, and they said to sit Tyler Higbee. Well, honestly, to be honest with you, I would start Tyler Higbee, and here's why. Tyler Higbee, to me, is a player who kind of goes under the radar, but he kind of gets it done. He's a player that I really, really like, and I feel like he's one of those players that can actually have a pretty big game and be the X factor on Sunday. So with Tyler Higbee getting his targets, it's going to translate into success. Now in 2019, Tyler Higbee against the Niners, one of the games he had 9 catches for 104 yards. No touchdowns, but 9 catches for 104 yards. That's a pretty good stat line for an afterthought tight end on your fantasy wire, right? Or in your fantasy lineup. So expect Tyler Higbee to get more targets. I expect him to have a stat line similar to that stat line, which is around 8 catches for maybe 90 yards and maybe 1 touchdown. All right. Staying on the receiving side, you got to love Jason Verrett. Man, Jason Verrett is playing well. Now, he tweeted some things that the 49ers need a new cornerback, but I've always been in favor of Jason Verrett. I think Jason Verrett is one of the most underrated free agent signings the team has had in recent memory. He is a true shutdown corner. Now, he does get a little grabby at times when he's exposed downfield, but I mean, that's kind of a veteran savvy play. If you're beat downfield, take the defensive holding penalty, which is a 5-yard penalty, or whatever the pass interference is, and live to play another down, right? You don't want to give up the touchdown, right? So as long as you keep other teams from scoring in the end zone, that's all that really matters anyways. All right, so Jason Verrett's playing lights out. Good game from Jason Verrett. Good season so far. Very happy with you. But when you go up against a player like Robert Woods, right, who's another underrated player in my opinion, you have receivers like Cooper Kupp lining up in the slot. It really makes life difficult as to how you're supposed to play your zones. And Robert Woods, to me, is a player who just is poised. He's poised to have a good game. In 2017, he had 6 catches for 108 yards against the Niners. 2018 didn't really fare well, but 2019, 8 catches for 117 yards. All right, that was last year. So I really look for Robert Woods to score a touchdown in this game, putting up a stat line similar to those I just mirrored, which is 7 catches for about 105 yards and about a touchdown, all right? Now, how will that all that translate into the 49ers winning this game? The 49ers are obviously underdogs. I believe they are minus 3.5 or 3 right now, and rightfully so, right? So the way Vegas works their spreads is they do it by home field advantage, right? Technically, with COVID happening, there's really no home field advantage, but this is a different time, different year. But typically, how it works is you get 3 points already just for being the home team. All right, so the Niners are minus 3.5, basically making this, or sorry, plus 3.5, minus 3.5. They're underdogs. They're plus 3.5. Rams are favored. The Rams are 3.5 and minus 3.5. And so my question to you is, when you look at that stat line, or sorry, that betting line, and then you also look at the over/under, which is set at 51 the last time I checked, which is 2 days ago, they're basically looking for a defensive battle. So you're looking for a 2023 game, 2026 game, somewhere in there. Before I even look at those numbers, I actually run how the game plays out in my head and then formulate my own scores and then go by that and then reflect it with whatever Vegas puts out there. And it was pretty spot on in terms of what came out. I had the Rams winning this game 27-23. I think the 49ers are going to take a late fourth quarter lead behind Jimmy Garoppolo. Guidance, and the Rams will come back and score a fourth quarter touchdown to ultimately win the game. That will give the 49ers one last chance to win it should they have enough time on the clock, and it will fall on Jimmy Garoppolo to have the 49ers score back once more for the go-ahead touchdown. It's going to be a good game either way. Now, a lot of teams are not giving the 49ers enough credit. A lot of analysts aren't giving the 49ers enough credit, but why should they, right? This is a team that is the reigning NFC champs, and for them to fall this hard, this fast, it falls on management, in my opinion. Management at the top. Of course, injuries have taken a toll, but when you look at it, I've said, and if you followed me, I said all along, the best thing the 49ers should have done, this is all in hindsight now, but even before this all happened, I said, release or trade Richard Sherman, save $13 million on the cap, use that money to re-sign DeForest Buckner. He was playing on the fifth-year option anyway, so you had him on the cheap. People saying, well, they couldn't afford him after that. Well, isn't the Super Bowl window now? So whether you could afford him after year 5 or not is irrelevant because the Super Bowl window is now. Now people were saying the Super Bowl window was longer for, it's 3 to 6 window, it's 3 to 6 years or whatever. No, it's not. What kind of NFL are you watching? No, the Super Bowl window is now. You shouldn't have got rid of Emmanuel Sanders. You shouldn't have got rid of DeForest Buckner. You shouldn't have got traded for Matt Breida. You shouldn't have traded Matt Breida to the Dolphins for basically nothing. Like that was a head scratcher. There's a lot of moves that John Lynch has made that just it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And in hindsight, people are now saying, "Oh yeah, you were right. Maybe we should have listened to you." And dishing out all that money for Eric Armstead, to me, was, in my opinion, not the best option. Now, he had a Pro Bowl season, Pro Bowl type season. Yes, I agree. But it was only 1 year body of work. So what you would rather have done is, I know it's a lot up front, but he earned that franchise tag. He earned it. In that 1 year contract year, he earned that franchise tag. If you look back at what other teams did, another team I covered, the Pittsburgh Steelers, Bud Dupree was playing in a contract year, right? They picked up his 5th-year option, right? He balled out just like Eric Armstead did last year. What did the Steelers do? They franchised him because they want to see another year body of work, and he's playing lights out. How's Eric Armstead doing? He's doing okay. Like, I think he's getting a lot of flack because he's not holding up his pass rushing lanes, which is true. But he is actually, in my opinion, the second best pass rusher on the team right now behind Kerry Hyder Jr. In terms of pressures, he has been graded out in pass rushing ability. He's been graded out 2 perfect grades by me in 2 out of the 5 games, which is great. I mean, that's a great stat line to have. But then in 2 of those games, in weeks 3 and 5, he disappeared. He didn't show up last week, and he didn't show up in week 3. So it's kind of with me, consistency with Eric Armstead. Does he have potential to be an all-pro, Pro Bowl player? Absolutely. I mean, he's 6'7", 315 pounds. Of course. Um, Players like that don't grow on trees, but at the same time, you have to be consistent. In the NFL, you need to be consistent. So when people were saying, "Oh, well, we couldn't afford DeForest Buckner," well, now with DeForest Buckner out, and now you have Pro Bowl defensive end Nick Bosa out, and you're getting paid like a Pro Bowl player to perform at a Pro Bowl player without Pro Bowl players around you because you have to win your one-on-one battles or two-on-one battles, and you're not getting it done or getting to the quarterback. Of course, there's going to bring heat. I mean, that just comes with the territory of getting paid $85 million. Speaking of $85 million, D Ford is being paid $85 million too. So in this offseason, what I would like the 49ers to do, I know I'm going off topic here, but this is what I like to see the 49ers do. Just cut your losses with D Ford. Save whatever money you have left over, which I believe it's $6.8 million or something like that. And use that money to re-sign Kerry Hyder Jr., who's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. That's what I would do. Because Kerry Hyder Jr. to me is a foundational piece that you can build around. He's a depth piece that you can work on the interior as well as the edges. So he's a player who I really like, and I feel like he's deserved of a long-term contract. All right. Well, that's it for today. I hope you like my BEASTwriter podcast. Go ahead, hit the subscribe button if you like what I have to offer, like what I have to say. I'll be doing giveaways for all people who subscribe to my channel. I have a lot of 49ers memorabilia that I like to give back to the fans, as I always do every year, and just as a thank you for you. So thank you so much. Stay tuned for the next episode of BEASTwriter Podcast. BEASTwriter out. Peace.